The United Kingdom has long been a global financial centre, and its approach to digital assets carries weight well beyond Europe. In this session, we hear from leaders deeply involved in shaping that landscape. Moderated by David Menz from Coinbase, the panel features Dr. Lisa Cameron, who has been a strong advocate for innovation within Parliament, and Professor Dr. Naseem Naqvi, MBE, President of the British Blockchain Association, and a leading voice in academic and policy circles. Together, they will explore how the UK is balancing innovation and regulation and what role it sees for itself in the global digital asset economy. All right, David, over to you.
Thank you, Alec. And thanks everyone for joining and continuing throughout the day. This session, I think Alec would have done a small introduction on, is about the digital asset landscape. I'm David Menz from Coinbase. I do APAC policy, but thankfully I was briefed very well by my UK counterparts. With me is Dr. Lisa Cameron, former MP, and Dr. Naseem Naqvi, who is also a professor. Lisa, I'd love to hear a little bit about your background, about 30 seconds, and then Naseem as well.
Yes, thank you so much, and thank you for having me here today. It's fantastic to join. My background is, as you mentioned, an MP in the UK Parliament. Prior to that, I worked in the health service in the UK, and I was the first psychologist to be elected to the UK Parliament. All parliaments probably need psychologists, as you can imagine. During my time in the Parliament, I started the first cryptocurrency and digital assets all-party group, and we run this group with myself as chair, engaging with industry, engaging with the regulator from 2021 to 24.
Awesome, thank you. Dr. Naseem?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Naseem Naqvi here. I'm the founder and president of the British Blockchain Association, one of the world's oldest blockchain associations, established in 2017. I'm also the first person in the world to be awarded a UK national honor in the field of blockchain and crypto assets in 2022. I'm also the head of secretariat of the all-party parliamentary group on blockchain technologies. Editor-in-chief and founder of the JBBA, the world's first peer-reviewed blockchain research journal available in print and online. In 2018, I was the first person in the world to coin the term evidence-based blockchain and set up the world's first Center for Evidence-Based Blockchain in 2018. I'm also author, speaker, honorary professor, and also a medical doctor.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Clearly, I'm joined by two pretty impressive people. Firstly, I'd like to just get a relatively quick background of what is happening in the UK. Obviously, there's been quite a few consultations this year, and the UK is currently sitting as a bit of a fast follower to the EU. So, Lisa, I'd love to hear from you where the UK is now, what its broad approach is, and is the UK learning the lessons of MiCA?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting question. I think you're correct. The UK is playing fast catch up. When we started the crypto group in 2021, there had been no debates at that point in the Parliament and the House of Commons on cryptocurrency. By 2024, that year, there were over 200 contributions on the subject. So MPs are skilling themselves, they're learning. We're getting the legislation in place. The FCA obviously aimed to finalise the stablecoin and custody regime, and there's going to be further work that's been done on property being recognised as tokens. The CARF regime comes in January. There's very exciting work that's being done on innovation as a whole between UK and the US in the recent announcements, a stimulus to innovation and growth for the economy. And in a way, I did feel last year potentially that the UK was running behind MiCA a bit, but I think given that the UK isn't subject to the MiCA framework, it's actually a very exciting time for UK because it can perhaps become a bit more definitive, create its own bespoke regime, and look at levels of competitiveness comparatively with MiCA and with what's happening in the US and globally as well.
Amazing, thank you. Naseem, do you sort of share this optimism that the UK can sort of learn those lessons and maybe carve out a little bit of a space for itself? How has the UK sort of interacted again with the Project Crypto sort of announcements from the US and the direction from the White House?
Yeah, I think UK is moving decisively. Last time I spoke at this summit last year, crypto adoption, digital assets adoption was about 9 to 10%. Now it's about 12% of the UK population holds some form of digital assets and crypto. This is about 8 million people. Just this year alone, we had about 5 public consultations we were discussing before we started the session at backstage on stablecoins, crypto from the FCA and HM Treasury. We have submitted responses to several of those consultations. April this year, HM Treasury published a draft consultation on the legislation on how to regulate exchanges and custody lending and other things. And I think the idea was to kind of avoid this full MiCA style overhaul, like the EU. They, as Lisa mentioned, we want to kind of chart our own carefully drafted course of action. And recently we hosted a parliamentary roundtable on digital assets. CFTC chair was there, and she also reiterated the importance of strengthening global collaboration. So UK is deepening ties with US. We are learning from MiCA and Europe, and we have indeed benefited from these regimes. If you look at, for example, the MiCA's regulations around stablecoins, for example, the transaction cap is 200 million euro per stablecoin issuer per day across EU. And major stablecoins issuers are a bit uncertain because on Coinbase alone, the USDC trading volume is 8 billion a day, over 5 billion a day on Kraken. So I think we have a lot to learn, and there is obviously Project Crypto. We'll see what happens. I think, will this maintain UK position? The answer to your question, yes, likely in the short term. I would say UK as a bridge between US innovation and EU caution. But I think we need to move fast, as Caroline Pham also said. Time to act is now. So we'll see where it goes. In terms of the transatlantic task force recently set up between US and UK, I think that is quite interesting. It's a part of the financial regulations working group that has already been in place for several years. So I think it's early days. We have to see how much of this alignment is feasible.
That's great. I think there's a lot of lessons for us to learn from that in Australia as well. I mean, first off, 5 consultations in a year. I think we're all looking at the back end of 2 consultations for the end of the year and threading a little bit. So you guys have been very busy this week. But another thing that we do need to look at is that that bridge that is being sort of built between the UK and the US. If that was something that Australia could find an equivalent for, I think it would help our regime drastically. I think that we're a little bit behind, and looking forward to the future is going to be as important to our regime as it is to the UK. Naseem, one of the sort of key things that is maybe a bit of a blocker in the UK is retail participation. There's FinProm requirements, there's 24-hour cooling off periods at sign up. There was a ban on ETNs as well, and derivatives are still banned over crypto assets. Has the UK clamped down too hard? Is it going to move in a different direction soon? Or is there some sort of larger balance there that us on the other side of the world aren't understanding?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. ETNs, there's a cautious but significant policy shift, regulatory shift. Since 2021, FCA had banned retail investors from buying crypto ETNs. Now this ban is being lifted. So from 8th of October, retail investors will be able to once again buy crypto ETNs. Crypto ETNs are proliferating on European exchanges. There are multiple issuers. We know multiple underlying cryptos. Several of them are also interested in listing those in the UK. I think FCA's concerns are kind of understandable because they are high risk, obviously, because they are tied to the value of the underlying asset. Volatility is a risk. Issuer credit is a risk because you're not actually owning the actual crypto. You're tied to crypto, so it's a counterparty risk as well. I think another important point is that there is no financial services compensation scheme protection, the FSCS, for these crypto ETNs. So the regulation is evolving around it. I think it's early days. FCA will be looking into it. The main thing is to avoid any consumer harm. Consumer protection is important. How the investors behave to this, I think this is also important. What's the demand? What are the flows? What regulatory adjustments are needed? And then there is a bit of a nuanced as well, as you know, there is staking ETNs are emerging, which is a kind of interesting area, and also not just the standard cryptos, Bitcoin, Ethereum. There is also governance tokens. There are other tokens that are probably going to come into play as well. So I think this is an exciting area. We'll see how it goes coming October.
Oh, I think you're on mute, David.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Naseem. And yes, this sort of retail participation is a little bit of an issue around the world. And one of the key things that we have an issue with in Australia is interaction of crypto asset platforms and consumers being able to access them either by sending deposits to them or getting deposits off them. Lisa, I think a similar debanking phenomenon is happening in the UK and potentially even a little bit more widespread. Can you give us a little bit of colour around that? And how do you think the UK government may go about addressing it?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I feel like great strides have been made by government in terms of moving forward on regulatory clarity, but there's still so many issues on the ground for companies to deal with. And when we have, when I go out a lot to conferences to speak to the front line, people who are setting up businesses, people who are really trying to be the key backbone of the UK economy and getting things moving, creating jobs and growth. And the continual message is debanking. How can the UK be a hub for innovation in digital assets if companies can't start a bank account and pay their staff? It doesn't add up. So there are real practical issues that companies are having to grapple with. And I know because I was over speaking with counterparts in the European Parliament, with the members there, that MiCA has built in some access to banking. Doesn't work 100% well, but it is some kind of resolution in a sense, and confidence for companies setting up. So I think the UK really needs to look at this issue. It's two of the main things that I'm getting from the actual front line of the industry when I reach out to them. And I have to say, David, much of that reach out has also been with Stand with Crypto across the UK, which is going very well via Coinbase too. So the two issues are the debanking issue and then FCA approval as well, which is very slow comparatively with other jurisdictions. And MPs are now getting up to speed themselves with the realisation that the Parliament has to work with regulator to make sure our process is streamlined, that companies can, the good actors can become regulated and can engage, and that all of the kind of red tape in the system as well in terms of day-to-day operations like the debanking issue is addressed too.
Yeah, that little comment about standard crypto rings relatively true in Australia. We hear a lot from advocates that debanking is kind of the issue that they're most passionate about. And hopefully there's another debanking campaign kicked off next year after this sort of first set of legislation goes through, because this legislation won't fix that. And it's something that needs to be addressed. A couple of days ago, I was in Hong Kong, and it was very interesting that the way that they got around it is the government just said, banks, you should do this. This is our direction, and a bit of a directive to do it. And it fixed it relatively quickly. It's still not perfect, but there is a major difference there. And the US seems to sort of be going into that in that same direction, having a little bit of a directive, having an expectation of what the regulatory posture will be there. So putting banks on notice that the government does have powers to direct them to do things, and they could be looked at in different ways. So potentially something that we can look at in Australia. Going back to government engagements, Naseem, you mentioned quickly that you're involved in an APPG. An APPG, as far as I understand, is very similar to what we have in Parliamentary Friends of Blockchain. How does that process look in the UK? And do you have any insights on what works well? I think we're always looking for better ways to interact with our MPs.
Yeah, sure. So what works well? One simple answer: quadruple helix model works well, which is industry, policymakers, academia, and civil society all working together. And that's how these APPGs work. So APPGs are all party parliamentary groups on blockchain. Yes, you are right. Very similar to Parliamentary Friends of Blockchain that you have in Australia. The blockchain APPG has grown into one of Parliament's most active digital economy groups now. We recently hosted a very large high-level international roundtable on digital assets. Lisa was there. We also run evidence sessions, field visits to universities. So we do quite a lot of things. And the British Blockchain Association acts as a secretariat of the group. So we are responsible for convening regulators, educating them, upskilling them, bringing industry, connecting them with parliamentarians. And the whole idea is to have a kind of evidence-based input, impartial, evidence-based. And parliamentarians respond best to three things. They respond best to clarity. They don't want jargons. Tell me very simply what works, what doesn't work, and also how it helps growing the economy, how it helps my constituents in terms of jobs, consumer protection, financial inclusion. So all those things. They are also interested in, and this is my personal experience talking to a lot of parliamentarians recently and over the years. They like to know what is working elsewhere, what is not working, what is the risk. If we don't act, will we fall behind? And also the evidence. So these are evidence sessions that we host. Policymakers are looking for peer-reviewed data, real-world data, no hype. So I think in summary, quadruple helix innovation model works best. It's evidence-based. If all four stakeholders work together, you have a 50% more chance of success. If only one sector is pushing for change, you have a 90% failure rate. So there is evidence and data behind it.
I love it. Quadruple helix model is definitely a new term to me, and obviously something that I need to go do some research on. So thank you for bringing me that idea. Lisa, you have been an MP, but you've also worked with APPGs. Do you have any insights on what looks good and how people should get more involved?
Yeah, I mean, I think the work that the blockchain APPG is doing is really vital, to be honest. Much of it is education. And as Professor Naseem has said, they're really going all out to improve MPs' understanding. And we had meetings last year because I have a kind of global APPG in a sense, the Digital Assets Legislators Group, which includes MPs from multiple jurisdictions. But the common thread through that for all of the parliamentarians is that they want to understand more and that they'll speak more on these issues, engage in the debates more, ask more questions when they feel they have a basis of understanding. And that's been the message when we had meetings in the European Parliament with the policymakers, the UK Parliament. We did some work in the Spanish Senate this year too, and we're taking the UK policymakers, some of the members of the House of Lords, out to the US, to Capitol Hill at the end of October. So I think Professor Naseem's absolutely spot on as well. It's very important, this is a global industry, that policymakers have an understanding as to where the UK sits comparatively to other regulatory frameworks in the world, and that there's engagement between legislators from different countries so that they can learn from each other too about what works, and they can gain confidence from each other in terms of engaging in this new, very dynamic, fast-paced frontier technology that's emerging. And I think, you know, for some of them, they can feel quite bamboozled at the start. I always remember Professor Naseem is entirely correct. The jargon is a problem. When we started the crypto APPG, and one of the first meetings I chaired, we had presentations from industry, and they were speaking about DeFi and CeFi and blockchain and Bitcoin and crypto, and someone mentioned fiat, and one of the older members of the House of Lords said, "Fiat, isn't that a car?" I thought we were talking about money, and then I was thinking, yes, we need to just get the basics right, take the jargon out, and fundamentally the parliamentarians want to know, how will this benefit people? How will it benefit constituents across the UK? And so learning about the actual real life use cases in health, in property, in international aid, where blockchain is becoming very fundamental. All of these use cases help them to understand how vital this sector is for the future.
Thank you. I think that's something that we'd love to get involved in. Amy Rose, potentially, if we could get some Australian parliamentarians to one of those global events, it might open a few eyes. So that would be very cool. Maybe not October, a bit short notice, but maybe sometime soon. We've got a couple of minutes to close out. Lisa and then Naseem, could you tell us just a short piece of advice on how firms, how the industry can capture the imagination of politicians and make them positive towards like blockchain technology? A little bit, you touched on a few different things, but what sort of really grips them emotionally?
Yeah, it is the use cases. It's finding out what's going to make a difference in people's day-to-day lives. It's like when, smartphones arrived. You don't need to know how they work, or you don't need to know how to code, but you want to know how this is going to make a difference, improve things for people, make their lives more productive, or make their lives easier in some way. And I think bringing the work you're doing, also very inspiring to have groups in the Parliament where you have the entrepreneurs coming through, those who are starting up companies across the UK and across different areas of the world, and to hear about the new innovations. That's always exciting for parliamentarians. And then, of course, because we're looking at digital transformation in blockchain and crypto finance, but also in other areas too, it's really a digital revolution. It covers art, sport, culture. I always remember we had another one of your sponsors today, OKX, come into the Parliament, and of course they sponsored the Grand Prix. Well, we had lots of MPs who didn't know much about finance coming to that event because they were so interested in sports. So So reaching out to members of Parliament where they already have an interest or an insight or a basis of understanding is also very important. So reach them where they're at and then build on the additional information and education from there.
Yeah, that's a great call. Find what their interests are and go from there. Naseem, any gold nuggets that you can leave us off with?
Yes, absolutely. So I think policymakers are looking for innovators who can speak the language of public service. People who can give tell stories that are ethically grounded, that are evidence-based, and anchored in blockchain for public good, as you mentioned. To how blockchain improves lives, how it is going to reduce remittance cost, secure our supply chains, tackle fraud, green finance. So human impact story is important. They resonate more than the consensus algorithms. Policymakers are not interested in whether we have solved the scalability trilemma or whatever. They are interested in how blockchain is going to deliver public good, economic growth, trust. This is the winning formula: evidence and impact, and how it can benefit people. How this technology can translate into public interest. Politicians want to see voter facing value. We have a lot of MPs. They come to us and say, my constituents visited me and say, how blockchain and crypto can benefit me or this locality. So public facing value is important. Consumer outcomes, safer markets, inclusion of SMEs. I think these are important topics. You have to also demonstrate local relevance to projects, UK projects, net zero, NHS efficiencies, how blockchain can help with regional innovation hubs. So policymakers, as Lisa mentioned, they don't change their minds because of white papers and all that. They want to see how blockchain is delivering public value. They don't want to hear jargons. Speak clearly. This is my advice to firms. You asked about how to capture imagination. Keep it simple. Bring your evidence. Show how this technology is making an impact. And evidence-based blockchain, which is what I've been advocating for so many years. What is the problem? Who is solving it better? What is the evidence you have? And what are the outcomes that you are measuring? It's simple as that.
I love it. I think it's something that we can all really remember to sort of brush up on, is that simple messaging. Keep it clean, keep it evidence-based, and yeah, try and get the jargon out. The jargon is really fun sometimes for all of us in the industry, but we have to meet the policymakers where they are. Thank you so much, Dr. Naseem. Thank you so much, Dr. Cameron. I think the only double doctor panel all day. So very lucky to be able to moderate such great people. Have a great day in the UK, and I hope everyone in Australia has a good evening. I think that we have a couple left over.
Thank you so much.
David. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.